This recipe is for shepherd's pie, and I'm going to start the shepherd's pie by preparing all the vegetables. So I have 750 grams of potatoes to start with, and same as usual, I'm just going to peel the potatoes into a bowl this time because I've got lots of veg prep to do, but it can be into a bowl, onto a plate, as long as you keep your peelings separate from the potato that you want to eat. And because these potatoes are going to be mashed for the top of the shepherd's pie, it's really important that you get rid of any eyes or bruises on the potato. So this is a good example of what I'm talking about, because it's not looking wonderful underneath. So here I've got a couple of eyes on the potato. There are bruises on that end which all need to be cut off. So I'm going to go over those bits. So I've got rid of the eyes by going over a second time with my peeler, but I am going to cut the bruises out. If you leave the bruises in your potato, what you'll find when you're trying to mash them is that you get lumpy mash. Any of those eyes or bruises will make you lumpy mash. So I've got 2 more potatoes to do very quickly, and then I can get these on to cook. With your mashed potato, they're going to take between 10 and 20 minutes to cook once they have come up to the boil. What's really important is that you don't start your timing until you have actually got the potatoes boiling. And you don't need to cut these too small. So we're doing mashed potato. What we don't want to happen is that the potatoes go to mush in the water and you then can't actually mash them. So if you cut them too small, it makes it difficult to judge your timing accurately. So I have my 4 potatoes peeled, and I'm going to cut these up, and I want them to be all roughly the same size. So that one I'm cutting into 4. This one is larger, so I'm going to cut this one into 6. But I need all my potato pieces, I'm going to do 5 actually. I need all my potato pieces to be the same size if they are going to cook at the same time. So that one I've done into 3, and this one I am going to do into 3. So they can all go straight away while I'm doing the other vegetables into a saucepan. And you need just enough water to cover your potatoes before you put them on to cook. So enough water to just cover all the potatoes, and I can put these on to boil. But there's one last thing that I need to do, and that's add about half a teaspoon of salt into there. Potatoes are one of the few things that I will add salt to before or when I'm cooking them. So lid on, those need to go on to start coming up to the boil. And while those are coming up to the boil, I can deal with the rest of my vegetables. So because my carrots are quite small and I like carrots in shepherd's pie, I've got 2 carrots here, which I'm just going to peel. And you can put mushrooms in this if you like mushrooms. It is personal taste which vegetables you put into it. I don't have any mushrooms at the moment, but what I do have is a stick of celery, and I quite like celery, so I'm going to cut the celery across. I'm just going to chop that into little horseshoes. If you've got mushrooms, you can slice them, you can quarter them. It's up to you how big you want your bits of mushroom to be, and I will finish slicing that in a minute. The carrots I am going to top and tail So just get rid of either end of the carrot, top and tail them, and then it's up to you. Some people like to have the carrot grated into their shepherd's pie. Some people like to leave it in slices. Some people, if it's a very big carrot, will quarter it this way, cut it in half, cut it into quarters. These carrots, as I've said, are not very big, so again I am just going to slice these, and they need to be an even thickness. One of the reasons that people will grate their carrot, and that you need to be aware of, is that carrot actually takes quite a long time to cook. So the carrot and the celery are going to take quite a long time to cook. If I'd grated this carrot, it would cook a lot quicker, but I'm going to leave it in slices. So evenly sliced all the way to the end, and then bridge hold to do the last couple of slices. I'll do the other carrot in a minute, but I'm left with an onion, and at home I have a separate board for my onions. So onion, remember, bridge hold, cut it half. I want all the rubbish off my board. I do not want onion skin on my board. And then I'm just going to peel the outer layer, remember, chop one end only off your carrot, and then bridge hold, and through your fingers you need to just cut nearly to the end of the onion, nearly to the end of the onion, not all the way through. I'm just going to have to swap to bridge hold now, so that when you have cut this you can still pick the onion up and it doesn't fall apart. You can then turn it round and cut across the way it grows, so you have nice small pieces of onion. And both halves of the onion need to be done. I'm doing my onion last because it's quite strong and I don't want to be breathing in all that onion juice. When you get to the end of your onion like this, you can, if you like, flip it over and just do the last couple of pieces. It is not essential that you put every last little bit of the onion in. So I'm just going to finish the celery, the carrot and the onion, and then I'll move on to the next step. The vegetables are all prepared. In my saucepan at the moment I have the onion and 250 grams of minced beef, and I'm just going to add the carrots and the celery at the same time. I've used minced beef because it happens to be what I had in the fridge, what I bought, but you can do this recipe with minced lamb, that's absolutely fine. And the first thing that I need to do is to brown off the mince. There is no fat in this pan at the moment, but I am expecting some fat to come out of the meat as it cooks. So I expect the onions, the carrots and the celery to cook through in the fat from the mince as it cooks. If you've got minced lamb, you will find that you get a bit more fat out of it. And then if you're using minced beef, you can choose how much fat is in the beef. But I'm just going to stir this, breaking up the mince all the time until every last bit of my mince has gone brown, and I can see that the onions and celery are starting to go clear. Okay, the meat has now all browned, and I can see that the onions and celery are starting to cook. But because I know the celery and the carrots are going to take longer to cook, before I add anything else to that pan, I am just going to leave them on a slightly reduced heat to cook for 2 to 3 minutes. My potatoes are up to the boil, and to check if they are ready, I'm just going to stick a knife into them, and if the knife goes in and it's soft all the way through, as these are, those potatoes are cooked and can come off to be mashed. Right, to drain my potatoes, you can do it by just tipping your saucepan up, but to be safer, I've put a colander in my sink and I'm just going to tip my potatoes into the colander so there is no danger of any hot water going over my hands. I can then shake them dry and pop them back in my saucepan for mashing. Your potatoes will mash quicker while they're hot, and it's easier, I think, if you mash them to start with nothing else in with the potatoes. Sometimes I find if you put butter or milk in with them first of all, they get a bit wet and it's difficult to get all the lumps out. So providing you didn't leave any eyes or bruises and they are properly cooked, it won't take long to mash your potatoes. You do need them well mashed because for your exam you really should be piping your mashed potato. That's the level of skill that we would like to see. When they're nice and smooth and they are done, you can add your butter. So I've got 25 grams of butter there, which I'm just going to put in and mash that through as well. And I prefer to keep using the masher, not to beat this in, because then if I have missed a lump, I've more chance of getting it out. When you've finished mashing your butter through, you need to look at your potatoes and make a decision about whether or not you think they are going to be smooth and creamy enough to pipe. So when you push your masher through, you can see that's coming through quite smoothly and evenly. There are no broken dry bits, so I'm going to leave that as it is. I'm just going to put it to one side while the meat finishes. To finish cooking the mince, I need a bit of stock, so I'm just using half a stock cube because I'm only got 250 mils of water and I don't like things to be too salty, but I know some people would put a whole stock cube in that amount of water. And I also have 25 grams of plain flour to thicken. To finish the meat for the base of the shepherd's pie, this has had 3 or 4 minutes to cook through. I can see that the celery and the onion have started to change colour and the carrots look as if they are starting to cook, so I'm going to finish this off. I'm going to do this as a brown roux, which means I'm going to add some flour to it, and I am just going to cook the flour off to start with. You've probably made a white roux sauce where you cook equal amounts of flour and fat to start with, so flour and butter or margarine, and you cook that together and then slowly add milk to it to make something like a cheese sauce. This is the similar sort of thing, but this is a brown roux because obviously we've got meat in here and we don't want this to be white. It doesn't have to be white in colour. So when you add your flour, you need to stir this up really well, and what's important is that you make sure you cannot see any white flour anywhere in your meat, and give that a minute or two to cook. So every time you stir it up, if you think there is some white flour caught on a bit of carrot, celery, it doesn't matter. We need to get rid of all that white flour and mix the flour with the meat and the fat that's come out of the meat to start with. The flour will thicken this and give you a little bit of gravy underneath. So my half pint of stock, I'm going to add about half of it and stir this up. Because this is a brown roux, I don't need to add the liquid quite as slowly as I did if I was making a white roux. I've got more ingredients in the pan and hopefully the flour is well mixed through. You can turn your heat up at this point, and I'm just going to bring this up to the boil and have a look and make sure that the gravy from this actually looks smooth. So you can see this would be quite dry if I cooked it like this. It would be fine to put underneath the shepherd's pie, but if it's your exam, you would be expected to serve a gravy or a sauce with this. So I'm just going to put in the other half, get the rest of my stock cube out of my measuring jug and stir that up until it boils. Once this comes up to the boil, I'm going to leave it to simmer gently for 15 to 20 minutes to make sure that the vegetables are cooked. Minced beef doesn't actually take that long to cook, but I want to make sure that all my vegetables are done. So when it's boiling, the lid will go back on the pan. I'll turn the heat down again and I'll cook it for 15 to 20 minutes. Because you've thickened this, you do need to come back and stir it occasionally, but you do not need to stand over it all the time. Right, the meat is cooked. I can tell that by looking at the carrots, and you can eat the carrots. I'm using a slotted spoon to put some of the meat, well, all of the meat and the vegetables into this dish, but I'm leaving a little bit of the gravy behind. So I am leaving some of the gravy behind so that I can use that to serve with the shepherd's pie later. So I want the meat and the vegetables out and to leave behind as much of the thickened gravy as possible. So this is my larger dish. I have potato in a piping bag, and unlike when you pipe on top of something hard, if you put too much gravy in here, you'll find that the meat or your potato will just sink into the meat. I've only put some of my potato in the piping bag because I don't want to use it all in one go. I find it too difficult to manage. And you need to remember that you hold your bag here and twist so that the potato has to come out the end of the bag. And as with all mixtures, when you are putting one on top of another, you start at the outside of your dish and work your way towards the middle. That way, if there is too much gravy in here and it is a little bit wet, what will happen is the weight of the potato should push the extra gravy into the middle of your dish as your piping forms a potato seal around the outside. So evenly around the outside, and then you can work your way into the middle of your dish. So I think I am just about, I'm going to run out of potato. I'm not quite going to have enough potato in here. I'm just going to refill the piping bag to do the last couple. Okay, the potato is piped on both of these, and I'm just going to pop them in the oven. Gas mark 4, 160 degrees for roughly 30 minutes.